said that we will start the panel at 11. We have a panel of 4 speakers today. The panel is called Organizations with an International Focus in Our Region. We will listen to Chris Green, CEO of Meds and Food for Kids. If you are interested in more information about the speakers, you have the extended bios in the program in the middle. Then after Chris Green, we will hear from Karen Williams. She has a PowerPoint presentation and some videos to show you. She's the Director of Communication and Partnerships for 10 by 3. Then we will listen to Seth George, who's here, Strategic Administrator for World Affairs Council of St. Louis, and we had a long collaboration in our long existence as International Studies program since 2016, right? It's pre-pandemic, right? It's important.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of students doing internships with World Affairs Council. And Mr. Peter Tao, who's a board member for OCA, the Asian Pacific American Advocates in St. Louis, the St. Louis chapter, right? Please remind me the acronym for OCA.
Well, it was originally Organization of Chinese Americans 50 years ago, but now it goes under OCA, Asian American Pacific Advocates. It broadened over the years.
Right, I understand. Thank you very much. So without further ado, we will hear first from Mr. Chris Green.
Thank you. So I'm Chris Green, CEO of Meds and Food for Kids. So Meds and Food for Kids is based here in St. Louis, and we operate in Haiti. So we're an organization that is focused on treating severe and moderate acute malnutrition. We have a factory in Haiti where we produce this product. So I have a sample on the table in the back if you'd like to look and kind of get an idea of what it looks like. It is a kind of peanut butter based supplement that is fortified with vitamins and nutrients and contains all of the calories and proteins a little child would need if they're severely malnourished, to go from being severely malnourished to a healthy little human being. And that program actually is of 8 to 12 weeks. So in those, really tragic videos that we'll sometimes see, you might see a commercial from UNICEF or World Food Program, you'd have a child in that state, and then 8 to 12 weeks later, they're a healthy little child. So it's a pretty incredible product. As I said, we make that product in Haiti and distribute it through partners such as UNICEF and other small nonprofits throughout the country of Haiti, through the Ministry of Public Health there, and we also export it to 17 countries, mostly in West Africa and South America. Another aspect of our program, so while our core focus is addressing severe acute malnutrition, we also have a strong core value in building local capacity and kind of expanding economic programs. So we have a farmer extension program where we work with local farmers to provide inputs and education to kind of improve their best practices. So one of the things that probably people don't realize is with peanuts and other similar ground crops, you have a risk of an aflatoxin, which is produced by a fungus called aspergillus. And in high quantities, this can be really dangerous to the health of children and adults. So as we began to work in Haiti and procure peanuts locally, we ran into peanuts that had really high quantities of this aflatoxin. So we work with our farmer extension program to kind of reduce that throughout the country, improving food safety for people, not just to consume our product, but consume any kind of peanut-based product. I want to touch on a few of the successes of our organization. So we have to date saved 700,000 lives. These are children 6 months to 2 years of age. We've had over 2,500 farmers graduate from our farmer extension program. We have just recently, the end of March, we installed a 300 kilowatt solar array. And so our factory is now run 100% on renewable energy through daytime operations, which is an incredible feat, especially in a challenging environment like Haiti, where otherwise you're forced to rely on diesel fuel. And then probably the other huge component of our success is the kind of hope and opportunity that it creates. So I don't know how familiar you are with Haiti, but it's faced many challenges over the years, both just from the original time that they gained their independence and going forward, a myriad of natural disasters. And it's an environment that is easy to fall into despair. It's easy to kind of feel like there is no tomorrow and you're kind of just stuck making the most of today. And so one of the things that we have really seen over the years, when I first started with the organization many years ago, I was living in Haiti, and at the time most of our key positions were filled by expats such as myself. Now we are 100% locally run organization. Everyone on the ground, 80 plus people, are all Haitians, all running our organization. So you can imagine if you're growing up or living in an environment where it doesn't feel like there's any opportunity, and then you see something like this grow and thrive. When we started, this year's our 20th year. When we started 20 years ago, it was our founder, Dr. Patricia Wolf, who's a pediatrician here in St. Louis, was coming down to Haiti, was finding whatever peanuts she could, putting them in a hand grinder, making 15 treatments at a time. And now we are like I said, we employ 80 people on the ground. We produce product for Haiti as well as 17 other countries. We have recently received one of the highest food safety accreditations in the world at our factory. I mean, this is a story that produces hope in people's lives, right? It tells you this is possible. I can look beyond today. I can look for tomorrow. And really, if you're trying to break, when we look at severe malnutrition, the impact it has on children, I mean, you can all imagine the despair you're in when if you could not feed your own child and you're having to make the decision between, do I feed this child or this child? So to have people come alongside you, to have them partner with you, help see your child go from this state of malnutrition to a healthy little human being. See that local professionals can use their skills in country, can create, can achieve world-class food certifications, can not only provide the answer for severe malnutrition in Haiti, but also be a part of providing that solution to other countries. This is a message of hope, and it's that really, in the long run, we think will help break the cycles of poverty and help be the long-term solution to ending severe malnutrition. A couple probably challenges along the way for those of you who might be looking into doing work abroad. You can imagine, depending on where you're working, there's some real challenges you can run into between the things that we just take for granted in the environment that we grow up in and then the environment you work in. And sometimes those things are, for us, working with, especially initially, trying to form really productive relationships with whether they be customs officials or government officials or different entities in Haiti. You kind of assume that you're going to be on the same page about the importance of solving these critical issues and how to go about solving them. And then you begin to have a conversation and realize, wow, I'm over here and you're over here, I think, for me, when I think of what I would do to sort of save the life of a 6-month-old, I'm like, why are we talking about a customs check to get raw materials into the country so we can make this product and save children, So challenges, I think, are taking the time to figure out really the nuance for the environment you're working in, making sure that what you're, it's not what you say, it's what people hear, and as we all know, that can be even, there's a challenge of that just between people in general. There's a challenge of that you run into when you're working cross-culturally. And there's a challenge of that when you run into when you're coming from when I'm coming from English and someone else is coming from Creole or French. And so taking the time to really work through those challenges, or taking the time to understand those key principles, those foundational principles, really can help solve a lot of challenges. And then lessons learned, kind of in the same vein as that, when you don't know what you don't know. I remember when I moved to Haiti, I lived in Haiti from 2011 until through 2019. And I really learned the importance of, I heard people talk about servant leadership, and knowing the principle and living it out are two different things. And so I would really encourage anyone who's looking to go really into any field of leadership, but really if you're looking at working in a international context, try to develop those principles of servant leadership. There's never such a thing as listening enough. I mean, listen, 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 and then when you think you've listened enough, listen a little bit more. Always look for opportunities to learn or understand. There are some things that even after 8 years of living in Haiti, I'm like, I still have no idea why we do this, there, but it's important. It's important to understand these things, or to try to understand, I guess, to live in the constant pursuit of trying to understand and trying to learn. And then probably last but not least is never forget who your key stakeholders are. I think for us, for many organizations, especially when you're trying to make an impact, sometimes you can think, okay, who are my who am I communicating with? Who are my partners? Like for us, we have UNICEF or World Food Program or other nonprofits. You have key relationships with donors or institutions in the States. But at the end of the day, our key stakeholders are the children that we are serving and their families. And it's really important to never forget, depending on what you're doing, who your stakeholders are, and that way you can make sure that the decisions you make as you grow as an organization align with those values to help meet those needs. I really thank you for your time, and I'll pass the mic on down.
All right. We're gonna have movie time now. I still get chills watching that, or just sit there smiling like I was watching it yesterday, just making sure it's what I wanted to start with. And It's funny also, like a lot of what Chris said is going to be the same kind of things that I say. And there's a lot of similar missions and ideas and focuses. On any given day, 10 by 3 affects the lives of 15,000 people around the world. And you just saw many ways in how we do that. And a basic overview of what we do, I brought some of our products over there just for a visual. We sell hand-woven products from artisans in developing countries, and we are focused on the areas in these countries in extreme poverty. So we are going to the extremely rural, the villages where no one is, and helping those people because it's often there where there's no hope. As you know, Chris was saying, there's a lot of despair. So everyone has heard the term fair trade, and we, while it's not an official certification, we call ourselves Beyond Fair Trade. So Teresa Carrington is our founder and CEO, and I can take absolutely no credit for anything. This is all her. She started this 19 years ago and has literally put her life and heart and soul into it, and it has turned into what it is. We have a proprietary model called Prosperity Wages that is very different than the fair trade model. So we pay our artisans at least 2.5 times what any fair trade organization would pay them typically. We commit to buying 10 products from every artisan each month. We currently have about 3,000 artisans, and by making this commitment, usually in about a few years, they will have enough funds to open up 3 small businesses of their own. So Teresa's entire premise and idea was not just to pay these people enough to buy enough for 2 meals a day or to get by. She really wanted to create a sustainable exit from extreme poverty, so these people were not reliant on any kind of foreign dependence, and they could create generational wealth for their families and become financially independent. This is Majada, and she is one of our stakeholders in Bangladesh. When she found us, when we found her, a middleman was paying her $1 for the basket you see her weaving right here, the equivalent of $1. And we paid her $12.40 for that same exact basket. So she will tell you when she was working for this middleman, she ate 1 meal a day. She lived in a shack that was not even large enough for her to lay down in. That's not okay. So I have a very different perspective on fair trade products now in the United States, and this is fair trade. These are beautiful people doing insanely creative, talented work. So Majada has never been to school, but she was one of the first who proved that our idea of prosperity wages worked. So this is Majada. She used our prosperity wages to start this rice field, and then her other 2 businesses were goats and pigeons. And as we continued to consistently work with her, provide her prosperity wages, her businesses grew. Within 3 years, they created enough where she could graduate from our program, and it was a sustainable exit from poverty for her. Because of this, because of Majada, we started saying, okay, this is a requirement. If you are in our program, you have to start 3 small businesses of your own. So there's many reasons for that. One is there's no one point of failure. So if something happens to one business, the phrase, all your eggs are not in one basket. No pun intended. We have baskets. And also it provides, these 3 businesses, we have one artisan who has 25 streams of income from her 3 businesses. So it's not only 3 streams of income, because there's many things you can do, with each form of business. So this is Joaria, and her 3 businesses are goats, chickens, and crops. And she also is another graduate of our program, and is just showing that the prosperity wages model works. And like I said earlier, it is not creating dependence on the foreigner, or it is creating that financial independence and making these people strong and powerful as they are, and should be recognized for that. So just because someone is poor, extremely poor, just because they're living in a developing country, it doesn't mean they're an automatic into the program. We do have a selection process, and we have a screening tool, and with that we are able to find the people who have that spirit within them, who are willing to do the work. We do pride ourselves on the quality, and so there are screenings, like artisans give us samples before, and we'll it's also providing those like working ideals to them, right? Like teaching them and giving them those tools. This is how you will be successful. So it is just not like come one, come all. There is, some selection process, and then we also are, have a very high quality standard. So by finding, that's Teresa in the middle, our founder and CEO, by finding these people who are truly extremely poor but have that spirit within them, we've been able to jumpstart local economies. We also do projects and have donors who jumpstart. We have like an artisan of the year where a donor will sponsor a country, and they have to come up with a project that will help the community as a whole. We built schools in Togo, we've done water wells, school supplies, the list goes on and on. So it's also not just focusing on these artisans, but focusing on their communities and the economies as a whole. Teresa was told at the beginning that, her ideas were kind of crazy. To be so selective was not ideal. These people are uneducated. Like, they're all the same. They're not going to be able to start their own businesses. They just need help from us. That's kind of a crazy idea, and I don't think it's going to work. And because of that, like, basically small-minded way of thinking is how I would describe it, and how Teresa describes it. People who are strong and powerful and talented were just presenting themselves as like these pitiful, sad people, to get money from the foreigners. And so 10 by 3, Teresa has always had a different way of thinking. She has always seen what is in them, what they can do, and we have always, in all of our marketing, only shown them as the strong, powerful people that they are. And, what they do for us, what they teach us, not what we're teaching them. So that's Teresa with one of our graduates, and we have like a big celebration ceremony whenever they graduate from our program officially. And again, she's just always made it very clear that just because they're uneducated, poor, does not mean that they are any less than. Mamuna is another awesome example. As she was weaving for us, she decided to open up a little market, which was non-existent in her village. Women were walking 2.5 hours just to find like soap and grains. And so she started just with some grass and tree branches. And then eventually, because we were consistently buying from her like we promised, and she was getting those prosperity wages that allowed her to have enough money beyond just taking care of herself and her family, she ended up being able to open a brick and mortar store. And so it's a legitimate market now, And what started as this little idea of hers has turned now into something that is a staple in the economy there. The idea behind our products is that we consistently buy from our artisans. So we're in Whole Foods, we're in Room and Board, we're in hundreds of retailers across the nation, and without them, without our supporters and people selling our baskets, we obviously cannot do what we do. So my job now and Teresa's job has always been find new markets. We have this group of artisans in northern India that we're desperately trying to find a market for. They're being abused and not paid definitely what their products are worth. But before we can help them, we so desperately want to, we have to find people to buy their products. Because we don't want to make any promises and get them that little glimmer of hope and then not be, able to deliver on that. Products, this is Adam Vila. She's another one. Her 3 businesses were cows, sheeps, and crocs. And just in a few short years, she was another one of our graduates. And this is one of the ceremonies. That's Teresa. And it's really like a fun, lively, just awesome experience that I hope I can experience someday. And it's awesome. So this year, next year will be our 20th year. We are on target to sell 100,000 products. So far, we have helped over 8,000 families. And basically, our goal is to just continue to help more. So really quickly, I don't want to take up all the time. Like Chris was touching on, there are definitely challenges. One of our biggest ones that we find in St. Louis, and Teresa could talk for hours on this, is raising capital. And especially here in St. Louis, in the surrounding area, I think everyone knows it's such a philanthropic community and region. However, a lot of philanthropists would like their money to stay locally. And so we always have to say, we are doing a lot for the local economy as well. So we provide employment here. Like Chris's organization, all of our country directors are from that country, and so everything is run by the people there, and we don't have anyone on the ground we're in Southeast Asia and Africa. We also provide a place for the people who need community service hours. We have a lot of people come volunteer for us. And then we also, a lot of large employers in St. Louis send their injured employers to volunteer with us while they, can't work at their normal job. So challenges obviously working, we just had, this is a funny story, not funny, but we were sending a shipment of, something tech related to Christy, our country director in Bangladesh. And my coworker had accidentally put the wrong name of the business. It was, Bangladesh did not like, our old name used to be Blessing Basket, and they didn't like the translation of that in Bangladesh. And so they said, no, you can't be called that makes no sense. So we're called Peaceful Creations there. Wendy put Blessing Basket. She had Christy's name on there, the address was correct, everything, but instead of making it to her, it went to the capital. And because of the cultural, her traveling on her own and the safety of her, we had just to abandon the shipment. It was just too much, it was gonna cost so much money. So there's constantly, little things like that, that I'm still learning, just how different cultures operate. Lessons learned, I think one of the big ones, and Teresa, is just gung-ho. If someone tells that woman no, that doesn't work. So she, when we were talking about this, she was like, back in after 2008 with the big recession, we needed a loan, and she went to 12 local banks, told the story. We had just had a 15% downturn in 2009, otherwise solid records, everything. And no one would give us money. So a lot of people might have stopped, might have given up. we got connected with the late Dr. Bill Danforth, and she sat down and she said, "I don't want your money." And he kind of laughed, and he was like, "Well, no nonprofit has ever said that to me. Everyone wants free money." And she said, "No, I just want your signature. Like, I just want you to back a loan for us. We'll do our part, and then we'll talk." And so he did that. It was 3 years later. We had done exactly what we were supposed to with his money. At that time, she asked him for a gift, like a matching gift, and he said, "Absolutely." So she said a lot of people would have just asked him for the money at the beginning. But now, not only, like, we got that loan, we fulfilled it, and now our bank would gladly give us a loan. So it is just working around those no's, continuing on, and also, like Chris said, just always remembering that we are working for our artisans, and they are number one in every single decision we make and everything we do every day is for these people. So thank you.
Hi everyone, can you guys hear me? I'll just speak loud. It is an honor to go after both Karen and Chris. They both work for inspiring organizations. I serve as the Strategic Administrator for the World Affairs Council of St. Louis, and our mission is to connect St. Louis to the world and the world to St. Louis. So we are members to two larger networks. One is called Global Ties, and the other is called World Affairs Councils of America. We are one of 90 chapters throughout the U.S. who program both the International Visitor Leadership Program and also Great Decisions in Academic World Quest. So to fulfill our mission of connecting St. Louis to the world and the world to St. Louis, we have two methods. One is cultural exchanges, and the other is through education. And first I'll talk about the International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP. It's an acronym I'll throw out probably quite a lot during this talk, but this program is a State Department program that brings emerging leaders from other countries to St. Louis and other parts of the U.S. for professional exchanges with their respective counterparts. So embassies abroad nominate participants to participate in this program. The State Department chooses which participants should participate in a certain program. Programs may be on the topic of cybersecurity, agriculture, nonprofit, entrepreneurship, U.S. trade policy, any topic we think of, we probably program it. And we write proposals containing resources within the St. Louis metropolitan area, all the way to Jefferson City, that these visitors could meet with. And once we're nominated for this program, we arrange about 8 meetings to give in a given trip, which is about 5 days, for our visitors to experience our city, learn about the professional resources in our city, and also get a taste of what St. Louis is like through home hospitality. So in a given year, we try to bring in 20 groups. That equals out to over 100 participants. And last year we had 110 international visitors from 28 countries who met with over 80 St. Louis leaders. 2 of them being 10 by 3 and medicine food for kids. But so that is the International Visitor Leadership Program. That's how we fulfill our mission of connecting people to St. Louis residents. But then we're also part of the World Affairs Councils of America. And through that, we're able to participate in an annual program called Academic World Quest, which we partner with St. Louis University to bring in high school students from all over the St. Louis region to compete in a competition to test students' knowledge on global issues. So just this past March, we had about 30 teams compete, that over 100 students on to learn about global issues. They studied and then they were tested, and then our winning team, Crossroads, will be flying to DC in 2 weeks to compete at the national level against about 39 other high schools. So those are two ways that we fulfill our mission. We also have many speaker programs, one being Great Decisions, which originated in Portland, Oregon, but in 1954, I believe, and these are topics on issues that the U.S. is facing. So this year we have topics on climate migration, Iran at the crossroads, China and the U.S., economic warfare, politics in Latin America, just to name a few. And we work with UMSL University, UMSL Global, to find representatives, professionals, and experts to speak on these topics, to talk about, give a little bit of background, but also what we're doing to prevent and these issues. We also work with embassies to bring in ambassadors to, or other dignitaries to St. Louis to meet with local professionals and also understand more of the St. Louis region. Those are our few programs that we do. I have in the back this graphic if you want to take a look. It'll provide an overview of everything that we do. But some of the challenges that we encounter, we are a small nonprofit. I'm one of 2 paid staff members, and then we have a full-time volunteer who leads the International Visitor Leadership Program. So despite our small size, I would say we're small but mighty. And this has our organization's staff capacity really is a challenge for us sometimes because we can't program as many projects as we would wish with the International Visitor Leadership Program. And the number of programs, the number of visitors dictate the amount of funding we receive from the government to conduct this mission. So our organization staff are having only 2 people, 2 full-time staff members in our organization proves to be an issue sometimes. Another challenge that we've encountered is just the transition back to in-person programming after COVID. Everybody that has joined our team joined during or after COVID. So we're all still learning the organization, how to fulfill it, and what our organization looks like in a post-COVID world. And this has also been a challenge with the International Visitor Leadership Program. All of our programs during that time were virtual, so the impact of these programs were not as great as they are now that we're back in person. And we're celebrating now 1 year of in-person programming for IVLP, which is very exciting for us. So those are some of the challenges that we've encountered. Some of our successes are the number of international visitors that we've been able to bring back during COVID. Like I said, we bring over 100 in a given year, and we introduce St. Louis to 28 countries. Countries that I've never heard of before. I started working here. Some of these countries include Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, many stans, but also many countries in Europe, South America, Asia as well. So we're putting St. Louis back on the map and introducing and showing off and highlighting our great organizations that we have to the world, which I think is very exciting. And one thing that I really love about working here is that with these programs, we have to research what resources we can propose to the State Department. So I get to learn, and so do our interns get to learn about the various resources that St. Louis has to offer. And there are many, many nonprofits, but also corporations that are doing good work in our city. And I feel like the media really highlights all the negative aspects of our city, but being able to learn about the positives is also encouraging and hopeful, as my other panelists have talked about. So those are a few of our successes. Our internship program is also a very large program of ours. We've been able to bring over 20 interns over the past 2 years, 2 of them being from SIUE, and we're bringing on 6 more this summer. So our internship program is growing. We're able to, although it's not paid, we're able to provide professional development opportunities for them. Our past intern was able to attend the national conference with us in Washington, D.C. and network with other professionals within the international fields, and then also propose a project that she's been working on the topic of refugee resettlement in St. Louis. So we're very excited about our internship program, and we really hope to continue to grow it. Lessons learned, like I said, our staff is fairly new to the organization, so we're still learning as we go. And with every program, we're learning what we can do better, especially as we're transitioning to fully back in person, since most of our programs are either virtual or at a hybrid level. That's it for me.
Hi, I'm Peter Tao. I'm a board member of OCA. A little backtrack. OCA started in 1973 as the Organization of Chinese Americans. It was at a pivotal time in the country, and it so happens that St. Louis, Detroit, and Washington, D.C., through the leadership of a gentleman named K.L. Wong, who was based in Maryland, he came around the country and galvanized the Chinese American community to have some representation. And so those 3 cities banded together and are technically the 3 founding chapters. There are now over 60 chapters in the country. The importance of it was because at that time there was, and especially in St. Louis, there was 0 representation from an organized point of view. Over the years, and in the 2013, OCA eventually changed its name. The mission didn't change, but it recognized that it needed to be broader, and that's why it brought in, as you know, it's ever evolving AAPI, AA, and HPI, but it's broadening so that it's a much more diverse representation as the communities have grown bigger. We are a nonprofit, all volunteer based. The only one with staff is literally probably in Washington, D.C. is the national headquarters. And, but together we are primarily focused on advancing social, political, economic, and well-being of the Asian American Pacific communities. And also, like any organization here, and I think those who understand, the quote-unquote Asian, there's just a real lack of understanding in our country as to who that represents, and that I'm not the same as someone sitting next to me. I'm Chinese. I'm born in St. Louis. My parents immigrated here in 1947. But that's always the challenge we have. So as an organization, while we're trying to move forward on certain issues and topics, we're always having to do cultural education, differentiation. And why is that important? Because there's a real lack of understanding from once whoever coined the model minority. It is just an absolute myth, because within this Asian group of countries, cultures represented, it has one of the widest disparities in income levels in the country. So that's why we're trying to break it down for people to understand, etc. What do we do? Well, one of the things, kind of, everyone's talking about lessons learned. Well, one lesson we learned as an organization over 50 years, and when you're volunteer-based, you go like this, and you go like this, and it's really tough. And it's tough to get board members, tough to get people on the advisory group, but we welcome anyone if you're interested. But one thing we have learned as the national chapter and headquarters has gotten stronger, they have developed a real robust set of programs that are wide-ranging and including a lot of programs that are related to youth leadership. So something we've learned, as I think a lot of others, we all struggle as local chapters, we're small, we try and do everything up on our own. We've recognized now we have an umbrella, and now the national is talking better with the chapters, because the national is putting on programs constantly. So while we don't necessarily create a program all the time here, we can present to the community through our various social media that you can partake in various programs and learn about a wide range of topics. So that's what we're trying to do now to spread the word, to get out the messaging better, and to be a greater resource for everyone we represent locally. But examples of things we've done, voter registration has been very important, as you know, just for the whole country. Asians have typically not participated as much, and a lot of times it's because they don't know what to do or how to register. So there's been a fairly robust voter registration initiative, unfortunately raising awareness about Asian hate incidences and what to do, who to fall back on, collaborating better with various government agencies so that we can inform them, they can inform us. Again, youth leadership programs. Actually, we're going to have a women's leadership little summit later on, probably in the fall. We were doing that regularly, and then, of course, like everyone, the pandemic hit. And this is illustrating some Asian American women leaders, but it's not necessarily that they're representing Asian American causes or topics. So that's a furthering of representing that. We're not just here to represent ourselves. We are part of the community, we are part of the country, we play a part, and we want to engage. One big initiative that the National has the FTC Communications Grant, and they're now just trying to figure out how to roll it out to the other chapters. That's bridging the digital divide. So that is not just an Asian concern, that's a big concern for quite a wide range of people, rural, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's a little less applicable to St. Louis, because when you do the demographics, or even in Missouri, there's not that high number of people. So it would be more relevant probably in like the Houstons and the LAs and the East Coast cities, Chicago. But nevertheless, we're going to try and play our part and raise awareness to that. It's a big topic, and I guess we just made one hurdle recently, but the banning of books in library, anything related to making diversity or cultural awareness, at least recently got reinstated by the Missouri Senate. But there are organizations that are trying to help, because there's a lot of students that are clamoring, Asian American students and others who are clamoring just to understand a little bit more in their schools, because we all know through our own, at least my history courses over my upbringing, I learned nothing. It was not relatable, it was not applicable, it was all about dates and statistics that really didn't mean much to me. And that's a little bit of a lead into one thing that I started with, which now the OCA chapter is partially engaged. Because my parents were one of the initial founders of the St. Louis chapter 50 years ago, I went to the Missouri Historical Society, who doesn't have a lot that they promote on the awareness of the Chinese American. So this is more particular to the Chinese American. They have information and they have been promoting stuff on past on the Japanese community, and even more recently they've got a couple of exhibits now on the Vietnamese community, even though that's a newer community, dating from after the war, Vietnam War. But I went to them and I asked, I go, you seem to only know about the 1904 World's Fair and the Chinese who came here. And immediately, this was in 2017, immediately they agreed we need to start a collection. It only took a day for them to say, we will dedicate ourselves to a permanent collecting initiative. 2021 we started, and because most people don't know, St. Louis's first Chinese person arrived in 1852. There was a Chinatown downtown, there was a community, there were a lot of people who worked their way into the community, there's legacy, generations, and no one knows that story. So since we have officially started in 2021, and I'm the board chair of the Chinese American Advisory Committee, I just immerse myself into it because I enjoyed this fact finding. So I'm doing a lot of the research, and actually if you go on their website now, it's one of these things when you volunteer and you make recommendations to people you're working with or organizations. I said, we've found a wealth of information just since 2021. The public needs to know that. And of course, the Historical Society, which is also a nonprofit, and they're strapped for staff, they said, okay, great, what do you want to do? What do you want to write? And I said, I wasn't necessarily saying I would want to write this. I thought this was under the Missouri Historical Society. But then they said, well, do you want to write? And I said, well, sure. And so if you go on the website under their blog section, I actually started the blog series, and we now have, the fourth blog should be coming out any day now. And really what these are intended not to be history stories or blogs. They will have history in it, but it's more meant to tell the story of the particular individual at a particular time, and to show that these people were every much human beings and Americans as anyone else, and they had the same joys and challenges. So that's what we've kind of partnered up with on the Historical Society. But anyway, we're a resource, and because of our beginnings as the Organization of Chinese American, we were just like in the 1800s. There used to be an organization called the On Leong Benevolent Society, also known as On Leong Tongs. Tong does not necessarily mean gang. They became gangs in more like San Francisco and New York, but generally they were that catch-all for a cultural representation organization that might have helped people with dealing with government, they might have helped people with business promotion, et cetera, et cetera. And that's essentially what OCA became in 1973. But what's great now, just so you're aware, because we are focusing more on the advocacy and civil rights, we do have Chinese organizations that are more cultural based. We do have Vietnamese, Nepalese, Japanese, a wide range, and then of course further East Asian categories. And we even have a Asian American Business Association chamber now. And so that's their focus. Their focus is business, helping businesses, etc. But as we know, when we tell these stories or when we're messaging, we all kind of have to do the same thing. We can't just focus on our little defined areas simply because there's too much educating that we still have to do. So we are out there. Visit the websites. I actually left. I brought a few things I can leave in the back that just gives you links to some websites, and we're really excited. This May 6th, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary at the Missouri History Museum, and it's been great because we're a sold out gala with a lot of support from the community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All these presentations have been very interesting. I would like to open the floor to the public if you have any questions for them. Again, in the program in the middle, you can see the extended bios of the speakers. You want to remind yourselves who are you speaking to. They have even the pictures over there, so you can match them. And if you don't have questions from the public, the discussion can be also opened amongst yourselves.
Chris, could you talk more about the leadership, the servant leadership that you mentioned?
Sure. And I'll tell you how I kind of perceive it. I don't profess to be the expert of servant leadership, but how I see it is oftentimes in a leadership model, the tendency can be to approach it. So I'm the CEO, and you walk into a room, you're sitting down with your staff, there's an issue, we're discussing it together, and my default instinct can often be to say, okay, great, I'm the boss, I'll solve this problem, right? Or, well, I see it differently and we're gonna do it the way that I see it. And really, oftentimes that will lead, that kind of I would call that an expedited approach to solving problems, will produce a quick result, but seldom, let's say often not the best result. And really it's about servant leadership. To me is for me to sit down at a table with my team, with whoever your team is, and listen to the people get feedback, listen to the people. And really my goal often isn't to solve the problem, it's to figure out how I can support the people on my team to solve that problem. And that is so when I say servant, to me that's servant leadership, because instead of it being, maybe the easiest way to say is like a top-down approach to management, it's more like, well, my primary job is to see you succeed and to help you build your capacity, to help you build your talents, to help you find fulfillment in this process. And that can be really, the reason why I think we really have to keep it front and center in our mind is because often when you're sitting in a panel like this, it's very easy to say, well, if you have a problem, you just let your team figure it out. When in the moment, it feels like there is a fire burning in the middle of the room. And you're just like, I'm gonna get the bucket of water and put it out. It's taking a deep breath. Once again, it's remembering your long term, what you are trying to accomplish. My job is 10 times harder if I'm the guy who has to solve all the problems. It becomes, in the moment, sometimes it internally, my blood pressure probably just, shoots up. But you have to commit to saying, okay, we are gonna walk through this as a team. I'm committed to helping you figure out how to solve these problems. I'm committed to helping build this capacity in you. Don't look to me for the answer. I'm here to support you, because that creates a much healthier, much more dynamic leadership model. If something happens to me, I need my team to be able to say, gosh, that's a bummer, but we're gonna be able to figure this out. We're gonna keep going, right? Chris believes in us. I need my team to say, part of a servant leadership model, even for me, is if your team knows that you're there to serve them, they're not as scared about what if they make a mistake? What if they get it wrong? Because if I'm there to serve them, I think of my little girl, I'm not like, well, you messed up, you're never tying your shoe again, you're never cutting your food again. I'm like, okay, how can we, what are our lessons learned? How are you going to do this better next time? And that creates an environment where people see themselves as taking ownership.
So a lot of our workers, like you mean in the countries themselves? Yeah. So we have a country director in every country that we work with, and it's someone who obviously is from there, knows the culture, knows a lot of the people, and they have been, most of them have been with the organization since almost the beginning. And so they are able to then, we also have like lead artisans. So it's kind of that approach where when someone comes on to, onto the team to weave for us, we have the country director. It's like a very friendly relationship, takes them on. A lot of these people don't know how to sign their names, and we have artisan cards. So every card matches, like, Shabana made this exact basket. And so we wanted to provide that personalization. Well, the country director helps them, teaches them, and then they do go through training, so then they'll bring, eventually you become a lead artisan, so then they bring their baskets. We are constantly sending pictures, and instead of being like, you've given us 3 substandards, you're out of the program, we have someone in the country there, whether it's the country director or the lead artisan, show them, give them more opportunities. So it's all definitely within the country. On anything kind of like what Chris was speaking on, Teresa was just dealing with a bunch of big tax financial mess in Uganda. And instead of her kind of taking over, and she has worked her way to know a lot of the ins and outs and the red tape, she worked with those country directors and our financial director for everyone to have them go and do what they need to do and coach them. So it's also her and just her experience. Hopefully that answered.
This is kind of for Karen and Chris. You both mentioned some challenges that you faced in the process of providing this service. Do you find that the government in the regions that you work, there's maybe some resistance to your disruption of the socio-economic structure? And if so, had that changed now that you've had so much success in making positive changes in the region? If you could just comment.
Yep, I can start with that. 100%. There's some resistance and has been in the past. I mean, we're basically going in and it's like this upheaval of what is okay and what is culturally okay and who's in power, and you're dealing with like royalty in Ghana, and all of that plays a part, and it's also like Teresa, she's the first, she's like, I'm this white woman coming in, and who are you to come in and like disrupt and whatever. So there has definitely been that, and then as she moved on and the program got stronger and the benefits were apparent, to the community and to that country as a whole, there has been some. Now, like Abdullahi in Ghana is highly respected for his work with 10x3. And we'll have people traveling, and there was just this horrible story, and this gang was coming to like steal his motorcycle, saw who he was, knew he worked with 10x3, and instead of taking his life, they just took the motorcycle. And so there is that respect also now. But like we're still having major issues in Uganda right now. There's just so much pushback. So we've definitely dealt with that.
Yeah, I think a challenge for us has been, with 20 years on the ground, we have reached the place where people understand what we do, and they find it very important throughout the country. But the battle we continue to fight is, we are a nonprofit, and when you try to explain that to a government official in Haiti, they're like, we understand but where do you keep the money? You know, it's like
Yeah.
the idea that we could be doing what we do as a nonprofit without there being some sort of like, yeah, you know, we get it, but you know, there's a kickback somewhere. That's just a battle that we have fought for the last 20 years and continue to fight. You know, we have allies, a few allies within the government that are in positions that kind of have just, that we don't see them changing every few years, but those are few and far between. Majority of the people, they come in order for us to do what we do, we have agreements with the government, what's referred to as both a franchise and then an accord, which is a special agreement that allows us to, in theory, import raw materials without paying customs or duties, and allows us to, you know, we have a very unique model because we're producing this product, but then we ultimately, UNICEF buys it from us to distribute for free, and we distribute it for free. Always the mothers and the children are never paying, but the organizations are helping to pay for the creation of this product. And that's just a hurdle we cannot seem to get over. And so it continues to create a lot of challenges for us when we renew these government agreements, because typically every few years, people in the office have changed, and then we're back to the, you know, trying to explain that we really are doing this just to try to save the lives of children and make an impact in Haiti. And similar for the customs, which can be a challenging relationship. They're sure, you know, if you're importing raw materials, there's got to be funds, and so even after 20 years, those are challenges that we still face, and I don't really see an end to those, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay, I think my question is ratings. So my question is there any avenue where you create a feedback concerning, like, to assess yourself concerning the program you're doing for these people? Like, and if there's any, how often you do that?
Like, how often are we speaking to our artisans to get?
What I mean is there any avenue where you get feedback from these people, like concerning what you're doing for them, like empowering them? So is there an avenue where your organization create like an avenue for feedback from these people? And if there is, how often do you do that?
Yeah, often, very often. So we have in our system, I can go, every artisan has like a number attached, so we can have in our system like matching, you know, scanning and matching and printing their card. So at any point I could go into our system, and a lot of these artisans have been interviewed, whether just, you know, like an oral interview, or we do a ton of videos, and we keep records of all of that. So I could go up and look up any of these artisans and read about their past and what they've done and how it's helped. And there's constant feedback. The artisans, you know, a lot of times feel more comfortable going to their country director. And then we have like monthly director meetings every month where we're all on the same call video and sharing any kind of feedback they've heard. And we have we're one of the few organizations that we have found that has that direct relationship with the artisan. So that feedback is constant. It's very open, very honest. And it's not just kind of like some marketing materials. We're like, oh, here's a pretty picture, and, you know, here's a quote that may be from them or not. It's coming directly from them, and we do interviews often. I would say at least once a year, but I could be wrong on that. It could be more than that. And then anyone who graduates, you know, we get statements from them, and continue to stay in touch and work with them, and they're still involved in the organization. So that's one of our main things, is that we want to promote that direct relationship, because it is so unique, because there's not that middleman that's controlling, or it's just this financial relationship.
So I have a question for St. George.
Yeah.
Regarding the International Visiting Leadership Program, I'm pretty sure they benefit a lot from the program, but I'm just wondering whether you all as an organization learn any important leadership from them as well that could benefit your organization too, apart from learning all the country name.
Yeah.
And another question is for Mr. Peter Tao. And during the COVID-19, I've seen a lot of the Asian rise of Asian crimes as well. So I'm just wondering, individual as an organization, how do you deal with that in order to reduce the Asian hate crime? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, luckily, our staff who programs IVLP, I no longer work on that program, but they're able to attend our IVLP meetings. So they sit in on these meetings as like a fly on the wall. And programs that or groups we bring in on projects such as NGO management, we can benefit from by learning maybe just some of their successes or challenges that they encounter within their country. And then, of course, we're able to hear out from our local resources, challenges and successes that they encounter as well. So we're definitely constantly learning what other people are experiencing in this post-COVID world. So there's a lot to learn in these IVLP programs. We don't always use the information that we receive, just as we're supposed to be a fly on the wall, and these are off-record meetings, but these meetings are very insightful.
Obviously during the pandemic, actually even before that, the hate incidences were rising. So the good news is that there are many organizations nationally now, particularly Stop AAPI Hate based in California, which had the highest percentage. They were monitoring. They started monitoring, and then they started, doing the statistics. There's another organization, Hate is a Virus. But between all the organizations, and including the OCA National, there's a lot of communications, and therefore, during that time period, immediately what started happening was there was constant Zoom meetings with whatever representative of whatever region in the country to share, have people talk, decide what are some actions to do. And actions are everything from approaching your local government to make sure they're aware of it. Of course, the FBI became very interested. The problem is a lot of people weren't reporting it. They didn't want to report it. And that's always the problem with all these hate incidents. They're scared that there would be repercussions. So all we can do as a local organization is try and make sure people are aware that there are those out there who might be government that are interested and care, but that's an ongoing thing. So if we can't get them to have that faith, then we at least have to have the local community try and be there to listen and at least try and give that person some comfort. There's been everything from training. I mean, there's been Zooms on how to defend yourself. I mean, it's really sad, but that is what has had to happen. That is what has popped up in terms of that. And mainly, for now, it's mainly like communicating, keeping open lines of communications open. And for us, when I do my presentations about the history, project, which has nothing to do with that, I present all these things about, what the 1882 Exclusion Act did to the mindset of people. They were scared. They couldn't reveal themselves. That resulted in human trafficking. I mean, the stuff that was just, and resulted in a lot of hate incidences because, of course, everyone thought everyone was illegal during that time period. So that's just a whole side thing. It's just constant education about You know, we are not the flu. You know, so that was one big thing that came out. We are the flu. And it's like, how can we be the flu? But you know, when that China virus came out, that was a hard thing on the community that people just don't understand. Because I think almost everyone I know, myself included, you got these. You know, I'm sure you might be familiar. It's hard for everyone to understand, but when you're not the majority and when you are a minority and you walk in a place and you get that look, you just know there's something going on. It's not just, you just know. And so that was going on a lot during the peak of the pandemic. And so all we can do is just kind of keep messaging. You know, Missouri's going through this thing right now with the farmland, which again, they group farm security with Chinese, but it's China. You know, it's not Chinese, it's the government of China. And then they made a sensationalization about how China is taking over Missouri's farmland. Well, the statistic is China, primarily through the chicken owner, Tyson maybe, or which owns a lot of farmland. Oh, Smithfield. They own 42,000 acres of Missouri farmland. Do you know if that's a lot? Missouri has 27.5 million. It's like 0.00 something percentage. But the way the legislation has made this xenophobia feeling, it then only rubs on to those who are just, you know, Chinese specifically, or of course you're grouping it now, Asian. So now it's just, there's this rural sentiment that like, and you know, that's why a lot of Asians actually in the St. Louis area, they don't necessarily like to travel out of the mainstream metropolitan areas. You know, St. Louis, Kansas City, you know, you feel pretty safe. But going out, it's like, you never know. So all we can do is just keep messaging and educating and sharing the stories to other organizations and agencies.
Well, I wanted to thank you very much for your participation in our conference today. I don't know, let's give them one more round of applause. So at 12:30 we have another speaker scheduled. Outside there's some food if you want to grab some food. Also, as I promised, I will draw 2 more numbers for this break. So let's see if you're the winners of the basket or the bag.